Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And we've just seen Le Mans 66, or as it's known in America, Ford v Ferrari. It's got a couple of titles.
Has it?
Yeah, I think that just outside of America, they probably thought they're not going to be interested as much in the business thing, the companies. But Le Mans is actually a popular race. Right. So maybe that's the calculation. Don't know, but that's what it is. Spoilers coming up. We spoil everything, including who wins. I've seen it twice now, because I saw it last night with Matt, and then I saw it again today with you, because you'd not seen it. And I was happy to see it twice, because I enjoyed it.
Yes.
And we were having a discussion on Twitter, or a little sort of head-to-head with Lee, who has previously been on the podcast, as local Birmingham filmmaker, Lee Kemp. Get me a podcast on Le Mans 66, he said. Toot sweet. And I said, is it as entertaining as Rush? Because I've been looking forward to seeing it. And he said, it might even be better. And I said, impossible.
Yes.
And I think I'm right. But
I like it
I still have a good time. You like it more than Rush?
Yeah.
Go on then.
Well, I mean, I really love Rush. But I think what this film does that Rush doesn't do is it got me really emotionally involved. Right? And at the end, I was welling up.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
So,
I thought you were guffawing, as you often do when films get sentimental at the end.
No, I was sniffling at this one.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, kind of, it got to me.
Oh, well done.
You know, especially when Matt Damon has that conversation with the son.
Yeah. But yeah, that is the climax of the film. Well,
that's
not
right.
The climax, but the ending of the film.
The film is about friendship.
Yes.
And about male friendship, and about kind of living through one's ideals, and also about knowing yourself, yeah? Kind of, and also about kind of give and take amongst friends, as opposed to onto business, right? So, and it really, I think it works emotionally much better than Rush. I think Rush is fantastic. I think on an intellectual level, it might be a better film. I'd have to see it again to compare.
I think the filmmaking is better, for one thing.
But I think it didn't get me as emotionally involved as this one.
No, I think that's fair enough. I think by the end of Rush being the film about Niki Lauda and James Hunt's 1976 fight for the Formula One driver's title, that was about building this friendship out of this rivalry. And by the end, it was kind of tying everything up with this neat kind of, Niki Lauda thinks one way and James Hunt thinks the other, and it was nice, but it wasn't. It didn't hit you or anything like that.
I mean,
I think does, because this ends, and this is kind of spoilers, but it is based on a true story. This ends with the death of one of the characters.
Well, it doesn't end with that, which I thought was so interesting, because actually it goes on for quite a considerable time, maybe like another 10 minutes or something.
No, they're not long scenes. He dies in testing, and then Carroll Shelby can't handle it 6 months later, and then he goes to see the family.
So it ends much later than I thought it would.
Yeah.
So it puts the accent on something else, which is about that friendship and that family.
The relationship between Ken and his son is a real constant throughout the film.
And as is the relationship between Ken and his wife.
Yeah.
So that's in a way the triangle, really. So it's the friendship with Shelby. It's his love of his wife, and it's his love and relationship with his child. And actually, all of those relationships are very kind of well worked through and very unusual. I mean, you expect in a film about car racing, for there to be models and champagne bursting and, lots of casual sex or whatever. This really kind of is unusual in that it is really very much about, a man's love for his wife and his wife's support of his goals, and a very loving relationship between father and son, and a very close friendship between men. Yeah.
Yes, but I also think this is something that I found missing about it, or at least tame. Before we get into it, I suppose I should quickly say what it's actually about, because I don't think I have yet. It's about Ford in the mid-60s wanting to compete at Le Mans, which is a 24-hour endurance race in France, for those who don't know. And it's properly, really prestigious. And Ferrari owned this race in the early to mid-60s. And Ford wanted to take the title from them. And so they spent God knows how much money and hired Carroll Shelby, who was putting, you know, sort of big engines in little cars and just like kind of, he's a real American motoring hero, right? Car design hero. And he was working with this bloke from Birmingham, Sutton Coldfield, called Ken Miles, who I think a lot of people don't really know about. I only vaguely knew about him. I kind of knew his name, and I
didn't know anything about him.
I knew he competed in Le Mans. So Carroll Shelby's played by Matt Damon. Ken Miles is played by Christian Bale with the fantastic Brummie accent. I love it. And they together built the Ford GT40, which in 1966 beat Ferrari at Le Mans.
Just to give a little background, because I actually think that the film does this very well. So basically, kind of where the film starts off is Ford sales are plummeting, and part of the reason why they're plummeting is because there's now baby boomers, post-war baby boomers, you know, who are kind of buying their first cars, and the 50c ethos of reliability and size and so on kind of is no longer attractive, you know, to these young kids who have so much disposable income. So they've got to try, you know, Ford has to try something new. Yeah, and this is where Shelby and Miles come in.
Yeah, John Bernthal is the kind of one of the upper sort of people.
Lee Iacocca, who, for anybody of my generation, he's a famous name.
Oh, he wasn't to me.
Right.
Go on.
Well, you know, I don't know if he was associated with Ford in particular by the time that I knew him, you know, but he was one of the big car business people of the era, you know, and I think, you know, particularly at a time where there were cutbacks and so on, and I think he resuscitated one of the car companies. I mean, by the 70s, it might not be Ford, I'm not sure. But as someone who doesn't know anything about cars, he was practically a household name with me growing up. So.
Oh, right, that's interesting. Yeah. And the other higher up at Ford, apart from Henry Ford himself, Henry Ford II this is,
yes.
Old Man Ford, long gone, is Leo Beebe.
And who plays him, by the way?
Josh Lucas.
Okay.
Well, I recognise some bits and pieces. I'll just check what he's done, because I definitely recognise... Oh, he's in American Psycho. I mean, he has got that yuppie wanker look to him.
Yeah.
And he's playing that here as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's very good.
He's great. A Beautiful Mind he was in, and he's a wanker in that, I think, as well. And a load of other stuff. Yeah, J. Edgar, which I didn't see. But he's got that, again, he's got that look. He's got that early to mid sort of century American businessman look. Anyway, he's
sleazy, backstabbing,
calculating.
Yeah, a more handsome Michael Gove look.
A lot more handsome.
Reptilian.
So, the thing is, chatting about it with Matt in the car yesterday, and then thinking about it during watching it a second time today, all I could think about were criticisms, really, which is a shame, because I want to make it clear that it's a film that I really enjoyed, and I saw it twice.
Well, let's go through your criticisms.
And it's 2.5 hours as well, so it's like I was happy to see it twice.
I think it's wonderful. So let's go through your criticisms, and then I can, interject.
Well, there's so many. I think basically the thing is, I didn't know until the film began that it was directed by James Mangold. It says a James Mangold film, or film by James
Copland and 340 to Yuma, and
who I really don't rate
Logan
as a director, basically. The first one of his that I saw was 310 to Yuma, which is fine. Night and Day was fine.
I don't know that one.
That was Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz trying to stay relevant. It was all right. The Wolverine, which was fine. Logan, which was fine. All he does is make fine films, and he makes films, I think, that kind of look like other films, or look like films should look, and I don't think he's really an artist.
I think Logan was overrated.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we can agree on that, actually, because
my heart sinks when I see his name attached to a film.
Oh well, it doesn't with me. I don't dislike him, but it's true to say that there wasn't like a single shot in the film that you go, wow, yeah. Yeah,
it's not it's not a dislike, but it's just a feeling that this isn't going to be as good as it could be. You know? Which you're right. I think there are actually shots here that I started picking up on as a really nonsensical, not just like not pretty or anything, because that's really not the issue. And I think it's kind of
some of the shots were very pretty.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it conveys that mid-60s, Americana aesthetic
those
very
shots
nicely.
At dusk in the airport, I think.
Yeah, it's on the runway when he's with his son.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
A couple of beautiful shots there. I agree, and I think I think he he really nicely sort of conveys the feeling of driving and speed.
Yes,
but
very,
I think,
so.
but it's the feeling of driving as opposed to the feeling of racing. I don't think this is a very good racing film, or at least they're not very good racing scenes.
I thought they were. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I enjoyed watching them, and I felt he was very good at creating kind of suspense in the racing. I
enjoyed watching them too, but I think there are storytelling issues in the racing.
Well, what are they? Because again, you know, so the opposite of a motorhead, I found them tense and exciting.
There are a number of issues that I had with the racing. One of which, kind of overall, is that this is about endurance racing. So these are 24-hour races, as opposed to, you know, Formula One. Like your race is an hour and a half long, 2 hours. So it's a very different kind of racing. You're not racing to be first exactly, but you're racing to cover the most distance in the allotted time. And it has stresses on you. I mean, I've been to endurance races before. I've been to a couple of 24-hour races. There's this race called Brick Car that happens at
We should mention at this point that we did the Nürburgring together. You drove, and I was like...
I drove the Nürburgring.
But I was a passenger on the Nürburgring.
One day you'll pronounce it correctly. I know you will.
Oh, what is it?
Nürburgring.
Nürburgring. Excusez-moi.
It's German. Yeah, no, we didn't do that for 24 hours, but it was cracking fun. And you were a champ.
I was.
But no, I'm not the kind of craziest sort of motorhead, but I've been to Brick Car a few times, and it's a really interesting experience, a 24-hour race, because especially at Brick Car, because it's not a big event. It's become bigger because the thing is, I went there when Top Gear did it. They made a car to participate, so I went to watch them. And it wasn't a big event at the time, and then since being on Top Gear, it became much bigger. And it was a really interesting experience because with very few fans being in the stands, I mean, there were more people in the pits than there were in the stands watching. So it really wasn't about the spectators, you know? Like Formula One it's all about the glamour and the glitz and it's on TV. This wasn't that at all. This was about the drivers just getting round, like doing it for themselves. And I remember because we camped, and so we went to see it, the race started at 3 or 4 o'clock. We watched it for a bit, went and had dinner. And then I got everyone up to go and watch again at like 2 a.m. And that was really interesting because there's really no one there. And it's foggy and you really can't see anything, as they kind of depict in this a bit. And you get this feeling of like solitude, like, you know, these guys are just pounding out the miles. You know, and you get no feeling of that here. This is like watching Match of the Day, where instead of seeing all the shit bits of a football match, as well as the good bits, you just see the good bits. So every moment is intense.
No, because I think the film is very well structured. And actually, I think it's a very good screenplay.
Yeah, so do I.
And so, at the very beginning, you have all of those shots of driving at night, you know, and how grueling it is, and so on. So you do have a sense of what that entails, right? Though, of course, that's at the beginning, and then the film, you know, as it proceeds.
Yeah, that's watching Carroll Shelby competing at Le Mans. That's right. The very, very opening. But, you know, you have Daytona, which is where they try and sort of fuck him, and that's where Carroll Shelby goes 7,000 RPM, go like hell, and he wins and earns the right to drive at Le Mans, and then there's Le Mans. And in those, I don't think there's any real conveyance of feeling of endurance at all. There's a split second of a shot during Le Mans where you see Miles asleep, and it's a split second, like he's in focus then out of focus again. I didn't even catch it until the second time I watched the film. You know, I really don't think it's good at conveying that at all. And then in more specific kind of areas of problems with the racing, here's the thing that they do a couple of times, is braking late into a corner. So there's this thing about, it's basically a game of chicken. When you're driving alongside someone else and you're going into a corner, it's who's going to brake latest. And it's not just about winning the corner, but it's about winning the battle. And that's kind of fairly well conveyed. But the problem is that when Miles outbrakes his opponent, then he gets around the corner really easily. And that's a problem, because the point is that braking late has a cost.
I think you're losing sight of the thing. I think in a film that is about a male friendship, and, you know, that kind of highlights the relationship between these men, the relationship between one of them and his wife and his child, whether he breaks fast or not fast in one of the corners is really a minor point.
Well, it's not a minor point when you literally asked me what were your problems and I started talking, here's the problems with the racing. It's a film which has 3 racing set pieces, 3 kind of central races, and I think the racing is not conveyed well.
Well,
so those
I
are the
think,
problems.
I think to a non-specialist audience, it is, because actually it's exciting. You get the sense of what the narrative is like at those points. You can make a connection between all of the racing sequences that you see, and they're all different. And they all have kind of different emotional moments attached to them, right? So I do think that if the film succeeds in doing that, which I think it does, then whether a guy breaks first or later or whatever, to me is insignificant.
Okay, it could be significant to you, but I think it's bad storytelling. I think it's bad filmmaking. I think the problem with James Mangold, this is James Mangold all over, is he is aggressively, offensively competent at telling basic stories. And then you get into details, and he's actually incompetent. I think he's incompetent to points. So here's another one. At the first race that you see Miles win, he just overtakes one guy on like the last straight, and it's a photo finish basically as to who wins the race. He just wins. So seeing who crosses the line first is important. And actually, the shot where he crosses the line happens like almost off screen. It's to the right of the screen, to the right of the frame. It makes no sense the way it's composed.
Right.
So like the important thing is not being emphasised properly. That's what I mean. It's
okay.
He doesn't seem to understand at times what the story that he should be telling or trying to tell, the important things to convey.
And yet he's immensely successful at conveying the emotions of the piece.
Did you think that the music was terrible and manipulative and quite cheap?
I think those are leading questions, aren't they?
You're allowed to say no.
Well, to be honest, I just didn't pay that much attention to the music. So
it's a terrible soundtrack. It's all guitar-y and do-do-do-do.
Okay,
that's why I thought that you were getting all annoyed at the end. Because I thought it was so obvious.
I was very moved by by friendship and loss and love, the things that you rarely see in racing films, in fact. And I think, I haven't checked the box office for this, but I can imagine this being a huge success because it does those things so well.
It's made its budget back. It cost 100 million. It's made over 100 million
already. So a hit, right?
Oh yeah. There are really good things about it, and I feel like I'm going to constantly have to be taking pains to say that I think there are really good things about it, and I liked it, and I've seen it twice for a reason.
Right.
But I also have all these criticisms. If you want to get on to some of the good stuff, there's some of that too. And like I said, I think the aspect of business and salesmanship is one of the most interesting things about the film.
Well, actually, that's what I hated the most.
Okay.
And I think it's crude. I think this kind of, the way that it pits Ferrari against Ford feeds into this America First kind of ideology in a way that I really dislike.
There were a few references to the war in there, and there is a kind of allies versus the Axis going on in the English and Americans being allied against the Italians.
Yes, I didn't like that. I can't imagine this film being as popular in Italy.
No,
and I think it's needlessly offensive in that way, actually.
Yeah, and when the Italian pit crew are sent scrabbling around, they steal their stopwatches. The Americans steal their stopwatches, and they go into a kind of cartoon tizzy looking for them. And it's it made me laugh. So I hold my hands up. I found it very funny, but it is also.
But it's crude and cheap.
Exactly, it's crude and cheap.
The same thing with the screw.
Yeah, and then Old Man Ferrari up on the balcony, literally shaking a fist.
Yeah.
It is very crude.
Yeah.
Very, very crude.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, you made the point. But I also think that it's interesting that Henry Ford II, played by Tracy Letts, who I love. Tracy Letts is really good. He does this in Homeland as well, at playing powerful men who are being told to fuck off by other people. He handles it so badly, I really like that, and that's what he brings to this. Although people only tell him to fuck off so much because he is Henry Ford. But he is not a racer. He has no interest in that. He's a businessman through and through. And this is brought to him as a way of selling cars.
Well, he's not... Let me interject a little point, because he's not just a businessman through and through. I think, what the film is also good at doing is to show that he is Henry II and not Henry I.
Yes.
Yeah, that he is a son of entitlement with things to prove, that has things too easy, that takes a helicopter, whatever, that he's like a king. He's like a medieval king in his kingdom. Yeah?
That's a good point.
Everybody
and there is that moment when Shelby drives him around in the Ford GT40, and it's a brand new experience to him.
And he's like the major American car maker, and it's a brand new experience to him.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So.
But the point I'm getting to is he says, "I wish my dad could
see me
this.
now."
Wish my dad not could see me now. He's crying.
Yes.
Because he's had this kind of, he's been shaken. But he says, I wish my dad could see this and feel this, and it's like it's about his dad that moment.
Yes, it is.
Which is interesting.
And the whole thing is about him proving himself.
It is exactly.
Because
it's when Old Man Ferrari, Enzo Ferrari, says, "You're not Henry, you're Henry II."
That's right.
That's when he turns.
Yes.
And he goes, "Okay, we're going to fuck him up."
But you see, I think this is where this film is so successful.
Yeah.
That you have these characters who are secondary, but who bring in, a whole world, and actually who are responsible for a particular kind of emotional resonance at every point in the film. I think that's true of him. I think that's true of the wife. I think that's true of, the villain of the piece. Yeah, the publicity man.
Oh yeah.
It's like, and yet all of this is orchestrated in relation to, this friendship between these two men, who are often at odds, but who basically kind of share the same project. Yeah.
Same project and same goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the film is immensely successful.
It's a very good screenplay.
But also, to kind of keep you emotionally involved through all of these different elements is, something that I have to unpack, because I think it's very rare in cinema at the moment. It's very rare in American cinema, and it's even more rare in films that star two men. Yeah. This is a male-driven film. Yeah. So, for it to have this emotional... Yeah. For it to have an emotional resonance, for a film to kind of bring me... To get me to well up, which is about, fucking car racing, and really about friendships between men, I think it's quite something. I rarely am.
Fair enough. I think we slightly went off the point of what I wanted to bring up about business, though, because I think what I was getting to was that... It's a film that it's about salesmanship. So this starts off as a project to sell Ford to younger people.
Yes.
And John Bernthal, who, as I now realise, plays the VP of Ford, when he gives his presentation, what he's talking about is why Ferrari is the greatest car manufacturer in the world, and why Enzo Ferrari will go down as the greatest car manufacturer in history. And he's talking about the fact that they sell victory and they sell sex and lifestyle. Basically, he's talking about advertising, and people buy Ferraris because they want a piece of that, and we can do that too. And the conflict between the real racers working on the car and driving the car, and the corporate head honchos who see it as a means to an end, goes throughout the film up to the point where at the end, Miles is essentially forced. It's portrayed as a choice. I'm not sure it was really a choice. To slow down and not win Le Mans outright, and instead bring in the 3.4 GT 40s as a dead heat for a photo opportunity. I think
he does that for Shelby.
Yeah. That's definitely how it comes across in the film. I meant more in real life. I don't know. In the film, it's a choice he makes for Shelby, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's about this selfiship all the way through, and there's a kind of... And I suppose I felt there was a kind of tameness to the film, which reflected that in a weird way. Like, watching it back, there's more swearing the second time than I thought the first time. But still, it felt kind of tame. I think the sex thing is really interesting, because the one important woman in the film, maybe the only woman in the film...
Yeah, the only woman who has speaking lines...
is Ken's wife, Miles' wife. And as you said, they have this devoted, loving relationship.
Which was lovely to see.
It really was.
So rare to see that.
Carroll Shelby is this guy who was like fucking supercharging engines and putting these kind of small block V8s into the AC Ace and whatever. You think he would spend his whole life fucking. I don't really know why he wasn't. Mind you, they are in the mid-40s rather than like 28.
Sure.
But, I think it feels like a lack in his character. I don't know why there's no sex in his life. I feel like there should be.
Oh.
Do you think?
No, I think this is part of why I find the film actually more interesting and better than you do, right? Because, why should it, in a way, right? Like, You know, so on the one hand, you have a happily married person. On the other hand, you have a person who drinks too much, who is living in a trailer at the beginning of the film, who, you know, there's a big point made of showing a beer top on his bed, right? So he's just drinking himself, you know, to sleep every night. So, you know, you get a sense that, you know, he probably just has transient relationships. Yeah, kind of that sets up a lifestyle in which kind of emotional relationships aren't important. And his main emotional relationship is with Ken Miles. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now that you mention it, is there something there? But I don't think there is, actually. I mean, I just think you have a happily married man and you have an unhappy single person, you know. And that's, yeah, kind of in the middle of life, and, you know, maybe things were different before and maybe things are different after the period that you see.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, this thing of, you know, two men with a drive and a goal, one whose life is a mess, the other one who's actually a very happily married person and whose problems in life are financial and business and whatever, but not emotional. I think, you know, that's part of the dynamic between them. I kind of, I don't have a problem with that.
Fair enough. I must say, it did feel like a lack to me, but I think that's a reasonable.
I think what's clear, right, is that there's no sign, you know, which it would be easy to put in and read, but there's no sign of, you know, that Shelby's gay or... Yeah,
no, I wasn't suggesting that at all.
Yeah, but that's important, right?
Okay.
Because, it, you know, I mean, that might have added a very interesting dimension to the film. Actually, it's just not there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's someone who, at this point in the film that you're watching, doesn't seem to have a sex life or a romantic life, Whereas, the other person is very happily married, has a family, is very loving,
Well, I suppose I hadn't connected to his other personal problems. I mean, he is, right at the very, very, very beginning of the film, he is forced to stop racing because his heart can't take it, and he has to go on these pills.
Yeah.
So, you know,
and the pills are a recurring motif.
They are, and he's always on them. And although he's not living in that trailer, he's just staying in it because that's at the track.
Okay.
I'm sure he has a house.
Though, are a recurring motif. He's someone who's at a moment that he fears death, that a heart attack could come and take him at any time.
However, what I was kind of trying to get to was a sort of relationship between the film's theme of salesmanship and image and its kind of nature as well, feeling kind of shaped. And so if you compare it, for instance, to Rush is sexy and dangerous and dirty and all these things. There's very, very little of that here.
No,
as you say, it's also talking about different things. But you know, this is a dirty, dangerous sport and all the rest of it. And that's not what this film is at all. This film is very sort of PG in that respect. And I think there is something that feels corporate and tame about that.
Well, I'm not sure I agree, because I think the whole ethos of the film is actually anti that corporate way of doing things. You know, the villain is that corporate mind-speak, as personified by
Josh Lucas.
Exactly. So I think the film is very much against that. Yeah. So on the one hand, it has that Ford versus Ferrari thing. On the other hand, it has a thing about the individual versus Ford, right? And I think it manages those things quite well.
Yeah, in the text, but the way that it feels and comes across, the way the film has been made, feels slightly anodyne to me. You know, it feels like an easy watch. It feels like it's selling kind of grace and ease and things as opposed to struggle. You know, like I say, that, you know, I don't want to bang on about the race too much, but there should be struggle in the racing, and there really doesn't feel like there is. It's a lark, really. You know, it's fun. It's a huge amount of fun to watch.
But I think,
it's not hard.
Well, you are focusing on the racetrack. I am focusing on the home life. You know, or the
home life is easy too.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Of course, it is.
No, it isn't.
They work out their problems really quickly.
A major scene in the film is the wife practically committing suicide on the road, right? Because she wants honesty from her husband.
I think that scene is trite and a failure.
Well, I'm not sure whether I agree or disagree with you, but the fact is that it's there. And, they come to an understanding at the end, which also underlines how good their relationship is.
Right, but the point that I'm making is that things get worked out very easily. Things get worked out very, very easily in this.
Well,
It's an easy watch. It's an easy film. I think it is...
Actually, I think part of the film's success is that it makes things like A Good Marriage kind of interesting and complicated and appealing in a way that other films don't even attempt to do it. I mean, kind of, the reverse would be so much easier. It's so much easier to put, kind of three hookers on a bed than to kind of work out the emotional interrelationship between a husband and a wife.
Well, no, I suppose that's true, but...
Which is what this film does.
But it doesn't make anything seem tricky. I mean, even when they actually have that argument about him giving up the racing and saying, I need to get a real job, how much of an argument does that feel like? How much of a turning point?
Well, I liked it very much because actually I thought the wife was coming from one point, the guy was coming from another, the wife was trying to be clear, the husband was like, pussyfooting around. But actually, you didn't quite realize, is he pussyfooting around because he wants to hide something? Is he pussyfooting around because he wants to protect her? I mean, there's all these interesting tensions in that scene.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Well,
I thought it was pretty
okay,
I thought it was basic. Yeah, no, we disagree. I thought it was basic.
What are you comparing it to?
Well, I suppose I'm not comparing it to anything in particular, but it felt easily kind of resolved and easily understood. Well, and it's an easy... I don't think it's a huge problem. Like I said, I think one of the things that is actually appealing about the film is that some of these things are easy and aren't too challenging. But I don't think it's a challenging drama in any respect.
No, it's not it's not challenging. It's not an art film. It is popular filmmaking. But I think it conveys those things incredibly well and in a way that are almost instantly emotionally apprehensible. And actually, that is something to kind of work through because it's lacking in most films. Most films don't engage you on any level, actually, and even fewer do so on this level. I mean, kind of a large part of this film is about a happy marriage and a happy home life and a lovely relationship between a father and the son. So why is it so engaging? Because it is engaging. And it has an emotional payoff, or at least it did with me.
It didn't have that emotional payoff with me, I've got to say. And I don't want to be overly critical of it, but it was engaging at a very rudimentary level, that stuff to me.
But is it rudimentary if you don't see it anywhere? Because, I mean... kind of we've been. It's almost our 200th podcast. How many films have been about a happy home life? One of the protagonists. Or about like a rich kind of loving relationship between a father and a son. Or a kind of a rich relationship
probably
between
more than you think.
A husband and a wife who are nonetheless kind of very different and who do fight. I mean,
probably more than you think.
Well, it would be interesting to go through the list because actually, I think you're wrong. I think it's quite rare.
I don't know. I don't think there's very much complexity in any of that here anyway. Even if you say, oh, it's rare to see a happy marriage, which I'm not sure that it really is. I don't think it's particularly complex or especially interesting here. I think it's quite emotional. I think it's not quite emotional, but it's something to get attached to here. When she goes to see him at work, when she goes to see him when he's listening to the race that he can't be at, and she's nice to him and gives him the beer. It's lovely, but this is not complex storytelling. This is not that original or interesting, really. To me.
Well, on a certain level of... I suppose if you want me to say, is this one of the masterpieces of world cinema? No. Is it the most complex kind of representation of a marriage? No. Right? But, this is a film, in which, it's complex enough because, what you see is you see them arguing all the time. And actually kind of part of the success of the film is that it makes these arguments seem loving, and kind of mutually respectful and mutually enhancing. It's about kind of, both doing what they think is best for the other, You know, so I think that's very interesting, and I think films rarely attempt or achieve that.
Okay. Oh yeah. Oh, all right. Fine.
You're a Grinch today, really.
Well, no. This is the thing. I like the film enough to see it twice, and I enjoyed it the second time. But I'm not. You know, I just don't think. I think there are things about it that are, at best, competent. You know?
Well, I'm not sure that I would disagree with. I mean, you know, again, we're talking about levels, but
Yeah.
But I do think, you know, kind of criticism has to praise what's there to be praised, and I do also think that, you know, at least for me, few films have made me well up this year, and this is one of them.
Yeah, sure. No, I you know, I'm not taking that away from you. Enjoy your cry.
Thank you. Thank you, Grinch.
There's a mythologizing aspect, I think, to part of it, and I think what you brought up about, I suppose, America First is not what came to mind for me, but there is a kind of you know, this is the all-American company. Ford. Yeah. Henry Ford invented the production line. He's an American sort of hero in business, sort of thing. And the film ends with a load of text, you know, intertitles on screen saying Ken Miles was inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame, Carroll Shelby made all the cars, and Ford is the only American company to have won at Le Mans. You know, only American automobile manufacturer. It's an American thing, right? And I think
it's an American thing at the height of empire. Yeah, so kind of this is post-World War II America, you know, which kind of led the world, like intellectually, economically, you know. I mean, I remember as a child the way that people would talk about the United States as if it was like this beacon, right? Like, you know, if you'd given a chance of people to stay in Spain or be in America, they would all have chosen.
This is when they were going to the moon.
Exactly, right? And, you know, this is one of the richest people on the planet who's got a blank checkbook, right? Because they make a point of that.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, it's not just that they spend a lot of money, it's a blank checkbook.
And I think this goes along with the aesthetic of the film. You know, it's a look that we've seen before. If you think about things like Apollo 13, you know, this look of 1960s America.
Yeah.
That has this kind of golden sunshine always. Mind you, it's California, so I suppose that's pretty true. But there's a perfection there's an idealism to the look
visually,
and the feel.
So, you know, if you're asking me the film as cinema or whatever,
yeah.
You know, in terms of using a medium, like, I think it's middling, right? But I think, you know, within that, I think what it achieves is very considerable, you know. So, A, it's moving. B, it's moving about a very unlikely subject, at least for me. The performances are great, you know. I really dislike Christian Bale. I don't know what it is about him.
Oh, really?
You know, his sourpuss face or whatever, like, you know, or that YouTube video of him going off. I mean, there's just something like I don't like him. I would not go see a film because he's in it, and actually it would be a disincentive. Even though I do admire him. Like, I think, what was it called? The Irishman or whatever, where he played the boxer. He was wonderful in that, right? I think he won the Oscar for that.
No, I don't think... No, What's-Her-Face won the Oscar for it, the supporting actress. The Fighter.
The Fighter, yeah. He was wonderful in that.
What won the Oscars in that? Because Melissa Leo definitely won... Oh, Bale did win the Oscar, I beg your pardon. I don't think he did.
So, he was wonderful. He deserved it. And he's wonderful in this, and so is Matt Damon. Right, and I think they play off each other so very well, and actually it's so well cast. Also, you know, there's not a single supporting character that's out of place in this film.
Do you reckon the son maybe?
No, I loved him.
Do you think he's a little bit sort of Dad, I like you? No,
I think actually it's a very, very good performance for a child actor.
Yeah,
you know, yes, I do think that. It's not sitcom-y, you know,
especially for an English child actor. They're normally shit.
Right.
Well, there's normally nothing worse.
You know, I mean, all you have to do is look at Mary Poppins and all of those, you know, bed knobs and broomsticks, and to think how bad a child actor could be. I mean, this is very good.
Yeah.
So I think all of those things are kind of very considerable achievements. I mean, I'm actually surprised at how much I like it. You know, because, like...
It feels like it should be something that you hate.
It does.
And I don't just mean because it's about cars and stuff, but to me, there are things about it that really feel so obvious. And the kind of things that you would pick up on and go, oh, this is what American cinema always does.
Well, maybe, but maybe I'm being blindsided.
Maybe just got under your skin.
Yeah, maybe I'm being blindsided by being moved to tears. But, you know, kind of again, I think actually, if I am, I mean, I wasn't actually moved to tears, but I did well up. So, you know, I think any film that does that to me is worth thinking about. Well, why did it succeed in doing that? Because usually I'm kind of very suspicious of that.
Yeah. I'm suspicious on your behalf, it seems.
Yes, you are. Because usually you're schmaltz.
Yeah, exactly. I was very disappointed with the audience today. The audience last night seemed much more up for it and responded much better to the jokes.
I heard weeping at the end.
Did you?
I did.
Was that just coming from you?
No. There was people sitting in the front of us, just below the corridor, that you could actually hear.
Oh, right.
Yeah, responding emotionally to the film.
Maybe a different audience, because last night I didn't detect any weeping, but there were a lot more laughs from the audience, and I think it's a really funny film, and it felt like this audience wasn't up for it in that way today, which was a shame to me, because I think the jokes still worked. I mean, I didn't laugh at most of them twice, because I had laughed at them once already, but they're not exactly jokes, but they are, you know, kind of, the scenes provoke laughs, and I think there's a bunch of good ones, and I mean, it's largely Christian Bale's characterisation of Ken Miles as this very sort of very ironic, sarcastic, confident Brummie.
Yes.
You know, sort of
you hated the Aston Villa t-shirt.
Oh god, yeah, it's somewhere's an Aston Villa top, and I couldn't have that. But you know, you can't. Well, you know, you can't have a go at a man's club. I suppose it's sacred. But well, I mean, okay, let's talk about Birmingham for a little bit, because I think maybe one of the reasons that Lee was talking about it so much is that it is so Birmingham heavy, and really seems to show an understanding of where Ken comes from, not just his accent.
You see, I didn't get that at all. I didn't even detect the Brummie accent.
Really? Did you not?
No. I thought, are they from Liverpool?
No, I think it's maybe your mileage may differ at home, but I think it's a really good accent, and
no, I believe you.
It's on the cartoony
it's
side.
More my ignorance than But.
Yeah. It's on the cartoony side, but I really enjoyed it, and I think there is a Brummie charm to Ken. The writers, a couple of the writers I know are English, Jez and John Henry Butterworth.
Are they English?
Yeah, I think they're from London.
Right.
They wrote, one of them, Jez, I think, wrote on Spectre, and they both wrote Edge of Tomorrow, which was that Tom Cruise film that we loved.
Yes.
But they definitely seem to have done their research and bought Carl's Chin book on Brummie sort of slang, because there's loads of it in here. I mean, there's kind of general English slang like pillock and using the word lamp as a verb and that sort of thing. But there's some really kind of local Birmingham stuff, like the phrase "round the Wrekin." Most of England won't understand that phrase, let alone America. Talking about a cheese cob for a sandwich. That's a Birmingham. They really seem to have done their research and taken it seriously, and I really enjoyed that. And it's something that a Birmingham audience should really be responding to. Matt and I were last night. Everything we heard, we were going, "Oh, that's from Birmingham." And then you see, and then you
provincials,
see, seriously. And then you see
the movies.
That's kind of what it's like. That's how it felt when Peaky Blinders first came on TV as well. Which is written by Birmingham native Stephen, what's his name? Stephen Knight, who's a blues fan.
Yes.
Good lad. And then you get the tin of Thai food.
Yes.
Because he's a tea drinker, and the Marmite jar, and you go it's like walking around the Black Country Museum when you see that stuff.
Except for the chippy.
Yeah, from the chippy, which is great. So it's a real joy, and I wonder whether I would feel anything like as attached to the film had Ken Miles been from Scotland or Wales or Yorkshire.
But here I am, didn't even notice any of that stuff, and I was moved by it.
But I wonder whether that's something that Lee's responding to, it being it's a big. This has made $100 million in days, and one of its central characters is a Brummie.
And yet, you think it's no good?
I don't think it's no good. I really enjoy it, but I think it's full of problems, and the problem is James Mangold. Why can't he be stopped?
I must say, I do think that things like Logan are overpraised. And I wouldn't make any great claims on this film as a work of art or anything. But I must say, I think it's very successful. I think it works incredibly well. I think the screenplay is fantastic. The actors are wonderful. And I was very moved by it. And really, kind of, that's almost as much as you can say about a film. If it hits all of those notes, that's a lot of notes to hit.
Yeah. Good movie, despite all the things that I think is anodyne about it and that sort of thing. It's a lot of fun. It's got loads of good jokes. Get it with a good audience, especially.
It's very moving.
You had a little weep.
I had a little weep.
Yeah.
I took out my handkerchief.
Yeah. But I enjoy Rush more, and Rush is the film that I will keep watching again because it's cool,
right,
and manly, and all the things that I am not.
Anyway, it's a big hit for very understandable reasons. I enjoyed it very much without thinking that it's one of the great masterpieces of world cinema.
Which it's not, because it's directed by James Mangold.
Thank you very much for listening. We're Eavesdropping at the Movies, and we are on
iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube and Spotify. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Matt Damon is Cooper. Tom Hanks, isn't he, these days, I think?
He is a little bit.
I mean, I thought that watching this, that this really has really Apollo 13 things going on. And the scene where he tells Ken, you can't race at Le Mans, is like in Apollo 13 when he tells Ken, you can't go to space.
Yes. He is an everyman character, and he looks very plain, but he's always interesting to look at. So, I think he's wonderful.
You never see him in the same room.